This time we are going to use this treasure chest that I've quickly put together to show how to use a Playmaker full functional state machine to play this open animation and this close animation, which are attached to the treasure chest. So I'm going to start by setting it up much like I did last time. Go ahead and add a new FSM right here to the treasure chest. Move that up in the corner. Add a second state. And let's have this first state be closed, because that is how I want the player chest or the chest to be found when the player gets to it. It'll be open. We assume that the player will want to open this in some way. And if we were really wiring this up in a game, we would do it from like a skill set, like a lockpick skill set, or the player could go up and take an action on it. In this case, we're going to use buttons just to quickly show how you put this together. So I have an open and a closed state. I'll add a transition to each of these states. And if you remember, we need some events. We need an open event and a closed event. And now we can add open to the closed event, because when it's closed, we're going to open it. And we can add, actually, I want to change the name of that to close. Pretty easy. You can see I can just update it right like that, and it changes it here. It also changes it in my transition, which is really handy. So open and close so that it matches the names of the animation. Now, just to point out, these are not taking action directly on these. We're not calling these or pointing to them. This is a human readable name. This is for you. Your player will never see this. And I do suggest calling them things that you will remember, say 3 or 4 months later when you go to update your own game, or if you write something and hand it to your coworker to do something with, make sure it's something they can read too. Well, let's go ahead and add our buttons. So Action Browser, and if we search for GUI Button, whoops, turn and escape, and I will choose the event Open, because that's what I want it to trigger when we're there. I will also label this Open, and again, this is not a direct call or anything, this is just a human readable piece of text on the button. And just like in the last example, let's use the same sizes and location for our button. Now we have an open button. Let's do the same thing over here again. Action Browser, GUI Button. Moving a little faster this time, because this is how fast you can work in Playmaker. It's pretty cool. Close. Point 1. Point 1 for the location. That way those two buttons will stack on top of each other again. Point 2 for the size. 0.15. And we now have an open and a closed button. If you remember, in our light switch example, we wired these directly together like this. And we put the light control right here in each state, because when we had the event change, just like flipping a switch, you wanted that light to come on instantly. But there's a problem with this. And let me add our animation control to this so you can see what the problem is. I'm going to type in animation. And you see I get a whole range of neat stuff we can choose. I'm going to pick play animation. That's what I want to do. Play this open animation right here. And you'll see that it's added it to the bottom of the stack. There's our GUI button. Scroll down a little. Here's our play animation. We'll go ahead and use the owner for the game object, because we did attach this functional state machine to the treasure chest. The animation name, if you use this pop-up button, it lists, I've got open and close listed here. It's listing these two animations that I have already on the object, which is very handy. And then let's hit play and see what happens here, and I'll show you the problem. See, the minute we start up this FSM, the animation plays. And actually, that's exactly what we asked it to do, because we come to the start, we start with the start state, we flow into the closed state, and anything within this state gets activated right away. So it created our button for us, and it also played this animation, just like we asked it to. And that's not what we want. We want this to sit closed with the button up, waiting for the player to take action on it. So what we're going to need is another state. Go ahead and create a third state here, and I'm going to call this opening. Means while the animation is playing, we're going to run into that one. And instead of this flowing here to that open state, let's flow it into the opening state. And I'll come down here. If you need to get rid of something, you can select it just like that in your action browser. Click on this little gear with the down arrow and choose Remove Action. And that'll take it right out of the stack for you. Get rid of it. Move this down here so we can see a little better. And let's add it again into this stack. Was play animation. Once again, choose that really quickly. And let's go ahead and play and see what happens now. So the game starts up, nothing's happening. If I press and we're in our closed state, right? If I press my open button, now it flows into that and it runs the opening. So, getting close. And what we need to do is when we're done playing this animation, then we need to go into this state so we can give it a button to close again. So let's add a transition to the opening state. And this time, if you right click and look here, there's one called finished. And this is a system event. It's already in here from Playmaker. You don't have to add it. You can choose it right out. There's lots of system events. Become invisible, become visible, collision. We'll talk about a lot of these later, but know that they're in here if you want to go looking for them. I'm going to choose finished. What that means is whenever everything in this stack, whenever everything in this state gets done doing what it's going to do, then it will be finished. And that will be the event which will allow us to move into the open state. So let's try that real quick and see if we've got it working so far. We play. Here we are in the closed state. I press my button. The animation opens. And as soon as the animation is done playing, it flows right here into the open state. So, it gives you that warning. If you can make changes to see what it is you're doing. You can tweak an FSM while it's running, and you'll get that error, but it won't save them. So just keep that in mind. Playmaker's really good about giving you feedback. Now, if we have an opening state, it makes sense that we're going to need a closing state. Let's add and name that. We can go ahead and add the transition and tell it to be finished, because we know that's where we'll be going. Once we get this set up, so in our closing state, once more back to the action browser, we'll add play animation. And this time, choose the close button. And let's double check that we did indeed. Yep, we set that to close, so we're good. Now, instead of having this wired here, it's already hooked up, but remember, we can just drag out and reassign that. Nice and easy. And I'll come out of the finished back into the closed. And now, instead of two states making our state machine, we've got four. We have two here that wait, right? One waits while the chest is closed, one waits while the chest is open. And these two give us a button so that we can take player action on this object. And these two actually do the work of opening and closing the chest. They play the animation. They could do all kinds of things. You could play a creak sound while it was opening up. You could change some lighting. You could have cameras move. You could do any number of stuff in between here. Let's play it. Just take a test. There we are in our state. I click open. Plays the animation. Goes here and waits. Now we've got our close button. If I play close, it plays the closing animation and goes back to its closed waiting state. And I can open it and close it all day long, or at least until I get bored, which is right now.